So you're paying your kids to meet with a financial planner. Is that what you're saying, Seth?
That's how it worked out.
That's how it worked
That's
out.
how it worked out. Whatever works.
Pretty lucrative meeting, right? For the kids. I get great advice and I get this, gift.
Yeah.
But
Okay, so I'm sitting here with Mike. Mike, appreciate you joining me.
Yeah.
And we were talking here recently. We realized something is that normally when we're talking about like intergenerational finance, a lot of times we think about it from the older generation's perspective. Like, oh, I'm really worried about the kids, want to make sure they're going to be okay. But then we realize, well, we don't really think and talk too much or as much about from the younger generation's perspective of like, hey, I'm worried about my parents. I don't know what their status is. So we figure we get together and kind of talk through some of that and what we've seen over the years as financial planners.
Yeah.
So what, I guess top of mind is unscripted conversations like, how do you even broach that conversation? What questions to ask? Obviously there's all kind of family dynamics associated with all of that. What's your gut take on that? How would you respond?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really important conversation, and a lot of times it can really just start with, hey, mom and dad, have you done your estate planning documents? Do you have a will? And where is it? And make sure where is it? I can't tell you how many times I've spoken to clients, and we even have like their kids come in and meet with us and all sit down and they're talking through kind of this exact plan. And, they look at their kids and they, go, yeah, we have our, wills and our power of attorney documents and a whole estate plan. It's in the safe. And they looked at their, 2 sons and they're like, and the combination of the safe. The 2 sons looked at each other and went, no, we don't. Nobody knows. So literally they had done the entire planning and then locked it away where nobody knew where it was and could get to it.
You need the original copy.
You do. You need the original to go probate, go through the court system and probate the will, and you need the original. And so it's witnessed in case you can't find the original. You have a copy. But then you have to actually go find and pull in those witnesses as a part of that probate process. So you want to know where the original is. It's much more streamlined.
And I feel like that's a great kind of a low stakes entry point into the conversation because the will, it's fairly innocuous. It's like, yeah, everyone should have a will.
Yeah.
And then with that alone, you'll know, because they might just say, oh, we don't have one. Correct. So there's a good starting point. And then where is it? And then from there, I feel like you could branch out into other topics, right?
Right.
Other estate documents, power of attorney. Who is your power of attorney? If you are incapacitated, who should I alert to that? Am I the power of attorney? Like, I mean, you just need to have that conversation, right?
Who will be appointed as the executor of the will?
Yeah.
Who will be the power of attorney? Yes. And so I think it's, really important to understand. A lot of times people will tell me, yeah, and I'm the executor. And you actually don't get appointed to be the executor until the probate process when a judge appoints you as executor. You can be named as the, executor in the will, but it's not a really official legal document that you can act upon until that death, until it's been probated. And so you really, as the executor, you have zero rights while that person is living.
Yeah. We've had clients, I kind of feel bad because when the topic comes up, I'm like hyper specific with the question to go like, did your parents have the estate documents all done? Yes. Yes, I'm the executor. Okay, great. Do they have their power of attorney document in place? Yeah, they got all that done, and I'm the executor. And you go, are you their power of attorney? Because so that's the distinction there, and we have other videos on this topic, but it's like during a person's life, if they're incapacitated, their power of attorney is what takes precedent, and that individual that they name in their power of attorney document is able to act on their behalf to manage their affairs, right? As soon as that person passes away, power of attorney document is out and the will applies, right?
Once it's probated.
Once it's
That's
probated,
right.
yeah. So then now the court validates the will and goes, okay, this person is identified as the executor. It might be the same person, but so for example, if you're a power of attorney, the principal is incapacitated, right? You can manage their affairs. You can call and say, hey, we need some money, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as they pass away, you call and go, hey, we need some money for the funeral. You're no longer the power of attorney at that point, right?
Yeah. No longer have those rights.
Have those rights.
Yeah. And then to remember, to understand too, for your parents, that power of attorney document can be what they call springing or non-springing, meaning when can you act? So some documents will require that you be incapacitated before your power of attorney can act, and others that you can act right away. You basically step in my shoes, act in my name today, or only in the situation of incapacity. And at that point, a doctor has to sign off on it, and it's a process. So you need to understand that. Hey, mom and dad, where's the will? Where's the documents? Who's the power of attorney? And is it springing? Is it non-springing? Because potentially, what if they're just not able to maybe take care of the things themselves, but they're not quite incapacitated. They just need some help. That document may not give you the tools and the keys you need to actually help them.
Yeah, if it's springing.
Correct.
Yeah. So let's imagine a scenario where that entry question, it answers all those questions. They do have their documents. We know where they're located. All of the powers are kind of officially granted. We know all that's clear. So let's say the younger family member is fully authorized to assist in whatever come what may. But then it's like, okay, all the different logins and the websites and how do I actually even do it? Who do I call? I don't even know where your bank accounts are held. I don't even know where your investments are held. So even if the person has the powers, what questions could they ask to maybe tease out like practical details like that?
Yeah. And I like to do a practical test, right? So, okay, mom and dad, you've appointed me. I have all this responsibility at some point. Let's just do a mock trial here.
Yeah.
And let's pretend you can't do anything. I'm going to pay the bills and I'm going to manage your finances.
Go.
Yeah. It's like, wait a minute. I don't even know where my parents bank.
Yeah.
And apparently they have 4 different banks for whatever reason.
Right.
And, I don't even kind of know where to start with all of that. I don't know how to log in their accounts. I don't know where they bank. That's also a problem. Do they have a safety deposit box, and where in the world is that located?
Right.
So it's just kind of getting your bearings if you're named in that capacity.
And I feel like that's where it could get kind of a little hairy in terms of like, okay, well, ho, I got my estate documents done. Now you want to know how much money I have?
Yeah.
Now you want to know where I bank on my personal business?
Yeah.
So that could kind of bring some tension to the forefront. I guess there's no like right way to navigate that other than to go, hey, I want to make sure you guys are going to be taken care of.
Yep.
And if I'm going to serve in this capacity, like I want to do a good job. What information can you share with me to help me do that?
That's right. Yeah. So in that situation, what are your wishes, right? What is your goal, to stay in the home as long as you can? Do you want to go to an assisted living or a memory care facility? How do they feel about that? What do their documents say? Do they want to be left on life support? What are their wishes? What are they hoping for? And maybe it's really important to them that, hey, if something happened to us, we would want the house sold and split between the grandkids, not go to the kids. So understanding what their wishes are. Have they, paid for a prepaid burial plan that you're unaware of?
Right.
Or if they have paid for it, would you know where the documentation is that you could then take to the funeral home and not pay twice?
Right.
It's just a lot of those things that parents and their kids aren't necessarily having those conversations.
Yeah, and I don't think it's out of lack of, I don't think it's coming from the standpoint of like, we don't think we're ever going to have these conversations. I think the older generation fully knows, and they may be squared away. I got all the documents, got the prepaid burial, I got all that, but I'm still healthy, and I'm only in my early 70s, and like, it's not a big deal, right? We don't need to have that conversation yet.
Right.
But it can, quickly get to the point where it's like, okay, we have never proactively had the conversation, and it's kind of this emergent planning situation.
Right. So I like the mock trial version of that because it kind of will bring to light, any discrepancies in the planning and the wishes and what you don't know. And, even from a standpoint of, if there's a funeral, who do you hope to be at the funeral and who do you want to notify? And where in the world would I find, your old Air Force buddies' contact information, so that I can make sure that they're aware.
Yeah.
And so just how do you bring all that in so that, their wishes as much as possible are carried out. But the mock trial will give you, some of those insights, walking through that. I think it's really important.
Do you think I like the mock trial could be this practical thing of working through all those phases. It also could be like the shot across the bow of like if they're failing to see the sense of urgency of like we need to actually do this process, it could be that hey, we're sitting around Thanksgiving dinner and go, "Hey mom, hey dad, let's imagine right now you guys keel over." Then we're all sitting here looking and like, "I don't know what to do. Brother, sister, do you know what to do? We don't know what to do." Right? And that can kind of like jolt them to maybe go through.
You just made Thanksgiving a whole lot more interesting, Seth. Yeah.
Homework assignment. Yeah. Everyone out there report back.
And I think the truth of it is, I think that clients as they're into their 70s are much more comfortable with this conversation. I know even for my parents, they like to bring it up more than the kids like to hear, right?
Oh, is that right?
Like, hey, remember, I have this and I want so-and-so to have this if something happens to me. And, the kids aren't hearing it. We're not going to talk about that. You're not going anywhere. And so a lot of times I think at Thanksgiving, they'll say, hey, if something ever happened to us, remember that X, Y, Z. And the kids are kind of tuning it out because we're not really wanting to have that conversation.
Yeah. It is tough, right? But I have seen scenarios with clients and loved ones as well. It's like if you get into that phase of life and maybe have that first health scare.
Yeah.
And then, depending on how close it gets or how dangerous it gets, it's all of a sudden talking about that stuff is not taboo anymore.
Right.
It's like it's very practical of like you guys need to know this, like let's do this.
Yeah, or even if you're taking them to the hospital and they said, do they have medical documents, medical power of attorney, and you're like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
You need to know.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so changing gears a little bit. So let's assume they have all that. I know where the logins in, where the old notebook is, where they write all the logins or the password service login or whatever it is. So that's squared away. What if I'm just worried about like maybe they don't have enough money or maybe I have no idea. And I know that if they don't have enough money, ultimately it's going to come back to me and my siblings maybe to help them through that, right? How do you broach that conversation of like, hey, mom, dad, how much money do you have?
Yeah.
I
think it's, hey, mom, dad, I was working on my budget and how much should I budget in to, replace your income when it runs out? When will that occur? Yeah.
Right.
No, it's an uncomfortable conversation for sure, but really important, right? Yeah. You're like, hey, if I'm the safety net, kind of help me plan for that.
Yeah. I mean, you're kind of jokingly, but I think that's the approach to say like, hey, among our generation, so like maybe wife and I, we're looking at our budget and we're kind of doing our planning and like we just kind of thought about like we want to make sure you guys are going to be taken care of throughout retirement, throughout medical stuff and everything. It was like, are you guys going to be okay? Like, what do we need to know so that we can plan ahead, if anything?
Right.
Maybe that's the approach of like, because parents want to take care of their kids, right?
Yeah.
If you imagine your kid in the situation of having to take care of you, you go, okay, let me go ahead and give you the information that you need.
Yeah. And I would say when we start planning with clients, I can't tell you how many times, countless times that I've heard them actually say the words, I don't know, I just don't want to run out of money. I don't want to have to depend on my kids.
Yeah.
Right. So it's one of those things that is typical that it's a goal not for that situation to happen, but it does happen. And so having that conversation earlier the better. And, maybe even reframing like, hey, will you buy gifts every year? That's not as big of a priority. We can, find other things to do and save money in the meantime.
Yeah. Yeah. Like very practically speaking, it's like, let's just kind of all get on. Let's talk about money. Let's figure it out. And like, let's make practical updates to what we are doing in our routines and everything. Let's be adults about this, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. I mean, I think the conversation is really valuable. So, and, I think it's hit or miss because let's just call it the baby boomer generation. they didn't really talk to their parents about money. That was just not something that you talked about.
Yeah.
They're much more open about money than their parents were,
Mm-hmm.
and then now their kids are even probably more open to
Yeah.
talking about it. So we're having the conversations. It's getting better, but I think understanding that their parents never talked about it, and so maybe even having the conversation that is, hey, throughout your life, what do you wish you would have done differently around money?
Mm.
What did you learn through, wisdom from making mistakes? What are the lessons that
Mm-hmm.
you wish you'd have known young that maybe you could teach me?
Yeah.
Even just asking that may just open up the whole conversation,
Yeah.
right? Like, yeah, I'm really worried about running out of money. I'm really worried about not having enough for my lifetime. I wish I would have saved earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I would have known more about maybe tax strategies and realizing that I could have maybe optimized what I was saving. Um, I think that conversation of what do you wish you would have known will open up, a really positive conversation.
Right. So it's starting off on the positive of like, hey, let me come to the parent and seek some guidance.
Yeah.
Right. And then based off of their response, you can kind of glean
Yeah.
other things potentially.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think everybody likes to give advice.
Yeah.
And so opening it up where they can give some advice. One, I think you should listen. It's probably really great advice, and
Yep.
and two, it'll just start the money conversation in a really positive way.
Okay, I guess we've kind of been talking about it from a potentially negative of like, oh no, they don't have their estate documents. Oh no, they don't have enough money. Let's put a positive spin on this thing. Let's say you're in a situation, you're younger generation, you know your parents have money, but you don't know exactly how much. You know you're going to get an inheritance. Obviously, you don't know when, but you don't even know how much. How would you even ask that question of like, hey, mom, hey, dad, like, I'm trying to plan out what am I in for?
Yeah.
Is that weird? I mean, that's a valid question, though, right?
Yeah, and I think if you're planning from the standpoint that maybe it's a proactive conversation and you're just trying to kind of gauge, but I know the conversations that haven't gone well with clients is when the kids come to their parents and say, "Can I have part of my inheritance now?"
Ooh.
That's tough.
Yeah.
But many times the parents don't realize maybe that they could make a huge impact for their kids' retirement.
Yeah.
And they plan just hey, when I die, you're going to get it all. But maybe a gifting strategy in the meantime actually would optimize what's left behind.
That's right.
But it's that one I think is really tough because you don't necessarily like, hey, do you have enough that you could gift every year and pay less tax and it's better for everybody? You don't want to seem greedy. You want to seem like you're waiting for your inheritance. That's usually not well received. But hey, can we plan this better?
That is something that we're seeing, I think, more and more on the other end from the older generation. We are seeing a more proactive gifting strategies. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a function of the more sophisticated projection and insights that we can get from financial planning softwares and things like that we use. That older generation that has the bulk of the wealth, they see exactly kind of their trajectory that they're on, mm-hmm. and they can kind of work backward to what they could safely, sustainably gift to the younger generation now. Mm-hmm. And those dollars make a bigger impact,
right?
When you're just starting out, when you're raising the kids, when you're paying, getting through college, right? And so we are seeing more of that. But again, from the younger generation's perspective, it can be tricky to try and initiate that conversation. I will say, a lot of our clients have had success of, I'll just tell them, like, blame me. Tell them, I just went to go talk to Seth, my financial planner, and he started asking me these questions. And I realized, wow, that could be like a really big, important thing. Whatever it is, right? Asking about their estate documents, asking, have they saved enough for retirement? Mm-hmm. Asking if you're going to be receiving an inheritance. If you just blame, it's nice to be able to blame a third party. And like, they asked me and they said that it would be important for them to know for my financial plan. So help me out. Could you tell me?
Right. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about the biggest wealth transfer ever to exist. Funds transferring from, the baby boomer, big population generation to kids and grandkids. And the conversation needs to be there, really on both sides. It's things that can be optimal, and you worry about your kids. Are they going to be financially okay? Maybe they don't have the pension plans and same type of benefits, and so they have more responsibility for saving early. And then we worry about our kids. Are they going or our parents? Are they going to have enough? Or are they going to run out? And I need to make sure I'm planning for that. So I think it's this uncomfortable conversation. We're all worried about the other, either parents or their kids, but that worry sometimes is probably bigger than it needs to be, and we just need to have the
Just talk
conversation.
about it.
Even if you said, "Hey, I'm worried that you know I don't know anything about your finances.
Yeah.
I think you're okay." Um, you know, and just tell them you're concerned.
Yeah. Yeah. When we kind of had another, video conversation about this, about how the nature of an inheritance is changing in real time. With this great wealth transfer, the inheritance used to just be gravy of like, oh, that's great. I got an inheritance. Wow, that's so nice. Thanks, mom and dad. Now it's like rising housing costs, rising cost of education for the kids, inflation on everything through the roof, wage growth, inflation adjusted wage growth, non existent.
Yeah.
Everything is squeezed so tight. So if you're that sandwich generation, you're raising the kids, you're kind of maybe worrying about the parents, all of a sudden an inheritance is not gravy. An inheritance is like, I need to be intentional and fit that into my plan and it's another piece on the chessboard, and I need to know it's there, or if it's not there, so that I can plan my strategy accordingly. And in the midst of all this, we have this kind of changing money conversation or money perception among generations, from the greatest generation of, it's like, don't talk about money, just save and put your head down.
Yeah.
To gradually through the generations being more open. And it's a very interesting thing to observe from our perspective.
Yeah.
Just, speaking personally, because we're in those conversations and in those rooms, a lot of times facilitating those conversations across generations. So it's a very fascinating, sure there's something to be done in the space of like sociological studies on all of this, but practically speaking, it's just really important to have those conversations early, so you can plan.
Yeah, the earlier the better, and it's becoming a necessity. And then also, what are you going to do with that inheritance, right? So it's one, more and more people are going to receive an inheritance, and even if they don't think so, they kind of maybe haven't factored in the fact that property values are up, and home values. You might inherit $500,000 in a home very, very easily now, with everything costing more. And so with that inheritance, what are you going to do with it? Are you prepared? How do you utilize it? And it used to be the windfall of, go on vacations, and it was usually spent within 18 months, regardless of the amount.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, you get millions, or you get, $10,000, it's spent. It's spent. It's the windfall. And now it needs to be very strategic.
Yeah.
And filling, a gap to provide for higher education cost, higher housing. Like you said, everything's costing more. And so how do we prepare the kids to be, if you receive an inheritance, what are you going to do with it? You need to have a plan for it. How do you optimize it? It can be actually the puzzle piece that maybe determines in this next generation, this big divide that I think will happen. It's the haves and the have-nots because of what they did with their inheritance.
Yeah. And I think that's another kind of way to frame that conversation. If you're in the younger generation, to go to the parents and go, hey, we know that good stewardship, financial responsibility is important to you, mom and dad. I know that I'm probably going to get an inheritance. I want to be a good steward of that. Will you help me kind of plan and be proactive with that? How are they going to say no to that, right? Yeah. Even if they have kind of an inclination to not share about money, I think like still they can kind of overcome that. I will say too, from the older generation's perspective, being intentional in how they gift / leave inheritance. I'll never forget, gentleman came to our office. It's been a number of years ago. You probably remember, we talked about it. Came from a long line of farmers. The family land now is sitting right on the edge of a lot of development, and it's valued in the tens of millions. This fellow's in his early 90s at the time. Strolls into our office, and basically, he had made up his mind, I'm going to sell the land and give all the money, 2 kids and grandkids. And so you probably know what my first question was is
What'd you pay
what
for that
what'd you
land?
pay for that land?
Yeah.
Or when you received it, what it was worth. And so a lot of people don't realize from a tax standpoint, it's the worst thing you could do
Hmm.
because he's going to sell and pay all that, capital gains tax on from when
Yeah.
he got it up to what it's valued.
All the gain.
Whereas there's just simple strategies that you can do
Mhm.
to avoid paying all that and wind up passing on even more.
Right. How do you optimize your wealth?
Right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's intentionality on all fronts, I guess is what we're getting at.
It is. Yeah. And I think, the clients that are, already in retirement, one thing they have access to is financial planners. They're wanting to leave money behind, and potentially their kids aren't even engaged with a financial planner.
Yeah.
They're like, we're not there yet.
Right.
And so that's another thing that can really be bridged is not only do we want to start having these conversations, but why don't you come into a meeting with my financial planner or let me give you access to the financial planner. I'll make the introduction. That's invaluable.
Yeah.
And the earlier they get started and having professional advice is going to make, huge, huge, tremendous difference in, their financial future.
Yeah.
And so, that's kind of the messaging that we're really passionate about is, not only talk to your kids about money, but introduce them to us. We'll help them. We can get all of that mapped out and you'll know exactly what to do if you have an inheritance.
Yep. We're seeing more and more of that too. We're working with kids, working with the grandkids of longtime clients. And, sometimes people are like, well, yeah, I don't really want them kind of knowing what all I have or anything like that. We always tell people like, it's confidential. I mean, we're not even going to talk about your stuff. We're just going to focus on them and then fostering wise decisions with their own money.
Mm-hmm.
And then such that when they receive an inheritance, they'll be wise with that as well because those habits are already established. And for people, in the older generation, we can show them a projection of their assets and go like, listen, you're going to have somewhere in this range of assets
left behind.
Yeah. What do you think is going to happen to all that? It's like, what are your kids going to do? What are your kids going to do with it? Do they know what they're going to do with it? Do they have the resources and the tools to be able to properly manage that? And they pretty quickly go, okay, yeah, we need to get them in here and talk to you.
Right.
Which is good. It's great.
Yeah. And it's true. The earlier that they're working on their finances, they're building those habits, but then you're not having to take an inheritance and plug in paying off credit card debt, paying off things that you could have been working on in the meantime.
Yeah. We had one couple. They were interested in the idea of proactively gifting, right? Because remember, those dollars make a big impact, for the younger generation when it's earlier on, right? They actually put a condition on the gift. I think the children were gonna either buy a house or pay off a mortgage, something like that. They said, you gotta come meet with the financial planner. I don't want to know what you guys talk about. I don't need to know, but you got to meet with the financial planner. So the kids came into our office, did a whole financial plan, did everything like that. Zero communication. I didn't tell the kids anything about the parents or vice versa, right?
Yeah.
Did the whole deal, established a relationship. Parents gifted money. And so that's great. I mean, just to know that, for the parent to know that they had that contact and the relationship established.
And they'll do the right thing. Yeah.
They'll do the right thing. So that was
kind
of what freed them to go ahead and make that big gift.
So you're paying your kids to meet with a financial planner. Is that what you're saying, Seth?
That's how it worked out.
That's how it worked out.
Whatever works.
Pretty lucrative meeting, right? For the kids. They get great advice and they get this, gift.
Yeah.
But no, it's probably one of the most valuable things you can do, especially when your kids are early in their career. Looking at making, potentially a Roth contribution. If you wanted to make a gift to them, they can take, the amount of their earnings, they can maximize their Roth contributions early, and potentially, doing the math. I mean, if you look at, they're not going to be retiring for 45 or 50 years from now. Even a $7,000 Roth contribution is $500,000 or more tax-free in retirement.
Incredible.
So think about, I can help them save $500,000 for their retirement today, just this year. And it's not even really moving the needle for, somebody that's late into their retirement years.
It's nothing.
But it's just a complete game changer.
Yeah.
And so by fast forwarding, which is what a financial planner helps you do, fast forward and optimize all of those decisions. It's incredible.
Yeah. Certainly hope you enjoyed the conversation today. So if you find yourself in that situation, you're the younger generation, concerned for the older generation, hope you picked up some tools and some tactics to kind of bring that conversation up. Again, I think what we touched on today was, start with how you're feeling. Hey, mom, dad, I'm feeling this way. I'm feeling worried. I'm feeling this, that, or the other. And that's kind of a way they're going to come to you. They're going to lean in at that point, right? So we've seen that in our practice with our clients' children and grandchildren. If we can be a resource to you and your family, we would love to do that. That's why we exist. So I encourage you, there's a link in the description to set up a complimentary consultation. We'll come in, we'll get to know you and see what makes sense in terms of next steps. Can't wait to talk to you soon.